Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of NFL 101. I know it's been a while since I did this. It's kind of, if I don't know if I did this, but said this, but I'm at a new job, so schedule's a bit up in the air right now. But anyway, episode 21, I believe. Now, this episode we're going to be talking about suspensions and the commissioner's exempt list. Now, I've talked about suspensions before, so I'm going to talk about them again. So suspensions are typically both the league and teams. So the team individually and the league in general do have their own rules for suspension. So a excuse me, a player can be fined with the league and be suspended by their team. And if you want to look up the team's rules for suspensions, you can. Uh, well, if you want to look up anything, I tell you, you can. Google is a pretty useful device or tool or whatever you want to call it. But, excuse me. But yes, each team has their own personal, basically a code of conduct, I'll call it, where if you violate that code of conduct, you will be suspended, and in certain instances, you could be even kicked off the team or just released. You've seen this plenty of times. Back in 2017 or no 2018, I believe. At the time, Chiefs running back Kareem Hunt got into a situation. I'm not gonna. You want to go look up that situation? You can. But other than that, I'm not gonna talk about it. But I'm not gonna talk about the situation itself. But the reason he got kicked off the Chiefs back then was not because he got into a situation that would have gotten him in trouble. The reason he got kicked off the team was because he lied about that situation he was in. He wasn't entirely truthful with the Chiefs upper management. So, you know, whether it was Clark Hunt himself or Andy Reid and um, Brett Veach, the general manager at the time, decided, hey, we're not going to have you because you lied to us. We're not going to have you on the team anymore. But anyway, so yes, in certain extreme cases, if you violate a team's code of conduct, they will just simply release you and eat the dead cap that will incur you just releasing you from the team. But yes, each team has a code of conduct that has it's basically if you violate these rules, however short or long they are. It might be one rule. It might be a list of 10 rules. It might be a list of 30 rules. That if you violate these rules, hey, you're suspended for a week or two. And then obviously the NFL, the league itself has a list of rules that could lead to suspension. Generally, most of the rules the NFL has usually the first offense. Well, okay, there's one rule I'm going to talk about that it's the NFL's like drug policy. So performance enhancing drugs or recreational drugs. If you violate those, I believe the first offense is is just a fine. But if you keep offending those rules, you will get it starts off a fine, then a suspension, or then a short suspension. Then if you violate again, it's a season-long suspension, and then if you violate again after that, I think it's an indefinite suspension. Um, so um, and I will say there have been um, there have been players in the past that they have done something so heinous off the field, or they have done things off the field that plans don't agree with, that essentially they essentially quit playing. So fan suspension is a thing, although it's not an official thing. A fan can't walk into I, as a Chiefs fan, can't walk into Arrowhead and say, "Hey, suspend Patrick Mahomes because he did thing X at restaurant B for everyone to see." Um, so it's not an official thing, but fans can report. Obviously, if you're a fan and you witness an NFL player doing something, you know, in wherever in the space you are in, you can report it to. I believe you can. There is a way to report it to the NFL and to the team that you're playing for. So it's not that fans can't get players suspended. It's just that when it's just that I as a fan can't go up to a random player and say, "Hey, you're violating the team's code of conduct. You're suspended." Essentially, again, court of public opinion is a thing. So there have been players that have essentially quit playing in the NFL or other football leagues because they did something that the fans didn't agree with, and the fans essentially booed them off the field. So fan suspensions, in that respect, fan suspensions are a thing. It's just without proper notification, they're not technically actually suspended. So that's the basics on suspension. You violate a code of conduct, whether it's your team or the NFL, and you get suspended, maybe for a single game, maybe for 2 or 3 games, maybe for 10 or more games, maybe for an entire season, and maybe for the rest of your career. Now, there is a special place for certain players called the Commissioner's Exempt List. Now, typically speaking, the Commissioner's Exempt List is not it's basically a placeholder suspension. So most of the time when you hear about the Commissioner's Exempt List, and this is across all sports, I believe, every major sport in America, and I believe every major sport around the world has some form of this, I think. Don't quote me on that. Again, look it up. But at least in the NFL, the Commissioner's Exempt List is more of a placeholder to say, hey, we are basically putting you on suspension so we can investigate while we're investigating. And then once the investigation is over, hey, the number of games we would have suspended you for, or hey, hey, the investigation proved your innocence, you can now come back and play. Or hey, you are going to serve an extra amount of time for whatever rule violation you did, whether it's violating the aforementioned drug policies or violating some other let me just call it human relation misconduct. So it's more of a placeholder, but let me be clear, it is also a form of indefinite suspension, where if a player does something, this is just an example. If a player does something as bad as murder, and they're going to go to jail for a long time, the NFL or the commissioner, whenever they do it, can say, hey, you're on the exempt list, you're not getting off. And it's basically that. So the exempt list has two main rules. One, it's a placeholder suspension until they get an official investigation done and say, hey, you can come back, or you're going to be suspended X number of games after this, and then you can come back. And the second rule is basically an indefinite suspension. Like, hey, you're suspended. You cannot come. You cannot basically. We are telling you are retired. You cannot come back and play in the league. you cannot come to events in the league. Now, there are players, obviously, who have come to back to the league after serving, a 2 or 3 year suspension on the commissioner's exempt list, and they've come back to the league. And then there are certain players who have essentially retired from football and then come back because uh, they were either exonerated or you know basically they were exonerated from the charges they were under. So that's all I have for today. I will see you guys in the next episode.